Hey everybody, this is Trent D. Walters, and I'm here with voiceover actor and audiobook narrator, Garan Patrick. Garan, thank you so much for joining me today.
Yes, thank you for having me. Appreciate it. It's a pleasure.
All right, so let's just start off with a little bit of background. So, for those of you who don't know, just finished doing the audiobook version of Exactly How It's Supposed to Be. And Garen is the narrator of the audiobook version of Exactly How It's Supposed to Be. Garen, why don't you tell people a little bit about who you are, a little bit about your background, and who is Garen Patrick?
Yeah, I am I'm 6'3", so there's something that stands out about me, I guess. A tall guy. Obviously, I have a kind of a deeper voice, and I've been told for several years, especially when I was doing Uber. I'm from LA County, so when I was doing Uber in LA, I had a lot of people telling me like, "Bro, you need to get in voice work. You have the voice for it." And so I just kind of kept that in the back of my mind. Didn't really have any plans on doing that, and then years later, I kind of came to a point where I was like, I need to figure out, a kind of a change of direction in my life. And I thought, hey, a lot of people have told me to get involved in voice work. So then I started looking into it. And long story short, we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But I kind of bought some equipment and started researching it and trying it out and kind of deciding, okay, I think I'm gonna go for this. I'm gonna at least try it. But a little bit before that, um, I had, I'm a Bible college graduate. I was a missionary in Nigeria. I spent a year and a half in Nigeria and have great memories there. A lot of life altering perspective changes happen when you spend over a year in Africa. Great experience. But my wife and I, after being there a year and a half, we came back to the States to kind of visit for a little bit. And then we were planning on going back. Over the course of us being back here, we just kind of realized that it wasn't the right fit for us. And it was a very difficult decision, but we decided to stay in the States. And over the course of time, I kind of realized I had kind of like emotionally decided, I'm going to go be a missionary in Africa, and I'm going to go help people and share the gospel. And I was excited about that, but I kind of realized that, I'm not really a pastor. I really do love to preach, and I love the Bible, and I love sharing the gospel with people, but I'm really not, I don't really have the makeup of a pastor. And so I just kind of came back to the States and realized I have a Bible college degree, but there's outside of ministry, there's nothing much you can really do with that in terms of like career. And so I kind of realized I need to figure out a career change. And so that's when I started looking into voiceover work, and a year later from that point, here I am, and I'm officially now full time in voiceover work as of about a month ago.
Oh, okay. Wow. So
Yeah.
So how long has the voiceover work? How long have you been doing it essentially? Like when
Um,
did you start like buying the equipment and all of that?
Yeah, yeah. So that was right around a year ago, June or July
Yeah.
of last year, 2023. Um, I bought the equipment, did just hours and hours of like YouTube research, took like a little short online course about how to get started, played around with some of the software, and just try to figure out how to kind of get it going. At the time, my wife and I had I mean, we live in California, and rent
Mhm.
is crazy high. So we had this literally 250 square foot studio apartment, the two of us and our two dogs, and we were squeezing that little thing. And
Wow.
it's not a suitable venue for voiceover work. So literally, what I would do, like on my lunch break from work, I would try to get my little jobs done, the few jobs that I had here and there, and I would just put a blanket over my face and just speak into the microphone because that was the only kind of soundproofing I could do at the time. So that's how I kind of started off. I would do, obviously, starting off, especially in voiceover work. it's going to be a very, very slow process. And I realized that as I'm starting off and just kind of doing a random job here and there with no real experience, no real portfolio or resume. Right now, like I realize that you start off working not for money, but working so that hopefully you can make money in the future. So I
Mhm.
would do little $5 or $10 jobs here and there once or twice a month, and that's what all I was getting for the most of last year. But I was getting some experience.
Mhm.
And then January this year, I really started putting. I was working another job at the time, but then I started putting more investment into just trying to change my samples, improve, and just kind of market myself a little bit more on the Fiverr platform, which is primarily what I work out of
Yeah.
right now. And then I started getting a little bit more traction, and that encouraged me. And then that's when I kind of thought, I'm gonna go at this a little bit more. And so I invested more time in it and started getting a little bit more traction and started doing, instead of one or two jobs every month, I started getting, maybe a couple a week or something like that, or one every week. And then I really did some years research on how to market yourself more on Upwork. And so I did that as well. And that's how I got contracted for three or four different YouTube channels. And then so I started doing, you know, narrations for maybe four YouTube channels a week. And so that got me more encouraged and that got me more experience. And then slowly my Fiverr traction started to pick up. And just to kind of give you a reference point, like they have this metric on Fiverr, they call it impressions, basically how many times you show up on searches. And I was probably at the beginning, like last year, July, August, September last year, I was probably getting, I don't know, a couple dozen impressions a week. And now I'm getting 15,000 plus impressions a week.
Wow.
So those are the amount of times that, you show up on people's search for the job that you do.
Yeah.
And audiobooks, to be honest, I know I'm just going here. I'll stop in a
Oh,
second.
that's good, man.
Um,
This is what I wanted.
all right. Audiobooks aren't really what I wanted to do, and it's really not what I want to do long term. I want
Yeah.
to really get into commercials more.
Okay.
But I started getting more traction for audiobooks than anything else, and I was like, that's what's hitting me. That's what's hitting for me, and it's more sustainable because you get a bigger chunk of guaranteed revenue coming in, and so it kind of sustains you for a
Yeah.
while you're waiting for more jobs to come in. And so I was like, let me just embrace this. I'm gonna do all the audiobooks that come in, and then I started to enjoy it more. Um,
What I think is so interesting is that when I was looking for somebody to read the book, first of all, it seemed like a daunting task to do an audiobook. Like, this is the book. Like, and because you spent the last, what, 4 months working with me on
yeah,
it.
it
Uh,
was a daunting task. I will say that.
so it was like, how am I going to get somebody and find somebody to do this and get in a studio and do all the stuff? And it just seemed like it was impossible. Like, I was just like, I'll, down the road. But people kept saying, like, I'll read it if there's an audiobook. If there's an audiobook, I can do it. If you don't have a audiobook, I don't really have time. And so I finally just said, okay, let me just figure this out. And I was going to use AI to do it because it was like, I felt like I could control it a little bit better and I didn't have to be annoying to somebody because I knew I was going to be a little annoying because I have some very specific things that I expected
No
the
comment. No comment.
sound like. um, and so I tried to do AI, and what I was really disappointed with AI is like you couldn't find any voices that sounded black, sounded African American, that had sort of like that tonality, like a black person, and
Yeah.
they just kind of a tonality that's in there, and I couldn't find it. So I'd used Upwork to do the logo that's on the back of here. I had somebody do the logo on Upwork. And so I started looking there to see if maybe there was a voiceover. They didn't have any options, like hardly any.
Hmm.
Uh, and then somehow I got to Fiverr and there was like all these voiceover options. Like I had the first day I looked, I starred or hearted or whatever you do to kind of reserve them. I reserved like five, and you were like one of the first five that I saw. And I said, let me sleep on this. And the next day I got up and I listened to him again and kind of whittled it down, whittled it down. But like your voice was just like the one that just kept like standing out to me. Like for some reason, I was like, that's that like throughout the entirety of the book seems like how I could hear the book going, right? And I would play it for like my wife listened to it and my kids, and they were like, "Yeah, I think I like he got a good voice. He's got a really good voice." And so that's when I reached out to you and did the offer, and you seemed really excited about doing it, and some of the other people didn't seem as quite as excited, and I knew it was it's kind of a different topic. So for you to be like excited
Hmm.
about it and kind of be in that world as well um, was just great. So I was like, yeah. And then after we started working on it, I went behind the scenes and I like Googled you. I Googled you and I found out like you were like you were a missionary in Nigeria, and I was like, oh my God. I got a dude who's like a missionary in Nigeria reading I'm like, God, there's no accidents for this kind of stuff. Like the fact that we were able to get paired up on Fiverr is just absolutely amazing, 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 amazing. And when I tell people, I'm like, dude, I got this dude. He's doing on my book, and he's a missionary. And they're like, he's a missionary because I hang around people that like appreciate that kind of thing, not like, oh,
Yeah.
missionary. Like
Yeah.
yeah, we appreciate that, and mission work is important. So.
Mm.
So that was super cool. That was just like, thank you, Lord. You're continuing to help with the production of all of this and making it all happen. What do you enjoy most about voiceover work? What's kind of the thing that like you weren't doing it full time, now you're doing it full time. Some of it had to do with maybe just seeing that you were good at it and you were producing some really good things. But what do you really like enjoy about it?
I enjoy um I just I just think it's a fun industry. I get to in essence really you're acting. And so I kind of get to act but at the same time I'm not in front of a camera. So I'm not you get to do the a lot of the fun aspects of acting, but then you don't have to worry about um like if you have all these different takes that you're doing because you keep messing up, like no one else is being inconvenienced by it but yourself. And so I just enjoy um just just the industry, just being able to do acting, and I enjoy just the the art of the human voice. And like you said before, I think I was gifted with the voice that I have. I have, just this deep voice. I've got just natural resonance, and also have some range as well. And by the way, it's just kind of humbling because I can't, for the most part, what I do is voice. Obviously, there's skills that you develop and you learn how to do the editing, and there's a lot of work that goes behind it. It's not just as simple as, oh, I'm just going to talk and get paid for it. But what's driving maybe any success I might be having right now is the voice that I just was given by God, and I can't I can't say that, oh, I worked hard to develop this voice, and it was just given to me. So it's humbling just to realize that this is just, I can't take any credit for it. So praise God for that. But no, I enjoy that. I enjoy the variety that I have. I know one of the questions that's coming up soon is going to be related to that, but there's so much variety, and sometimes I'll wake up and I look at my Fiverr and see the messages there, and there's sometimes there'll be like three different messages from different people, and it's like, oh, this person wants a book summary, this person wants an audiobook, and this person wants an online ad or whatever. And sometimes it's about sports, and sometimes it's about history, and there's just so much variety about it. And then I get to kind of to decide what kind of style, what kind of tone, what kind of pace am I going to put into this. this self-help book is going to be drastically different than this novel. And
Right.
this ad for software is going to be drastically different than this YouTube video about history. So there's so much variety, and every day I get to discover, what am I going to do today? And so I would struggle if I was just doing the same thing every single day. But since there's so much variety and you just never know what's coming, I think that's one of the most exciting things about it. On top of that, from kind of a different perspective, what I enjoy about being a voice actor is the flexibility and freedom. I am a freelancer, and I have clients as opposed to a boss. There's a huge, huge difference between having clients and having a boss. And I literally work for myself. I
Yeah.
work with clients. I work through Fiverr and through Upwork. But it's really cool having that independence, where it's like I can make my own schedule. If I want to have, if I want my day off to be Friday this week instead of Saturday, I can do that. And I did that yesterday, by the way. So it's cool just to have that freedom. And it's like, if something pops up, I can always do it and just work later that day in the evening if I wanted to. If I want to go fishing that morning, I can just go fishing and then go into work later. So it's really cool to have that flexibility. Um, One of the other big things I love about the voice acting industry is just the lack of a ceiling. I feel like with other jobs I've had, kind of in a corporate setting, you just kind of realize what your limitations are, how much I can move up, and how much, really financially speaking, how much I can climb. And you just think, oh, this is the highest I can go in this organization. But in voice acting, there basically is no limit. You
Right.
can grow and grow in the audiobook world and get up to the point where you're doing, like, high level novels or self-help books. Um, and then you can, I mean, obviously in voice acting, you can get to the point where you're doing video games, big name video games, or maybe even, voicing characters for a movie, things like that. So there's really no limit. And then also when it comes to efficiency, when you get better at editing and you get better at not messing up with your original takes, you do things faster. And then when you do things faster, obviously you want to make sure you're keeping a good quality. But I'm working a lot faster now than I was 6 months ago, and I was just messing up, and just every sentence I'd have to redo. Almost, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but when you increase your efficiency, then you actually make more per hour. And
Yeah.
so some of the and I'm kind of an analytical person, so I'm always, like, every day just thinking, like, how much, what's my hourly rate right now and stuff like that. So as opposed to being locked into, this is my hourly rate, it's like it could be what you want it to be. And
Yeah.
if you work hard and really just kind of study and perfect your craft and do a lot of research, which is available mainly through YouTube for free, you can really perfect your craft, and it's really up to you how much you want to grow.
Yeah. Yeah. So are you from the California area? I think you're outside of LA to a certain degree, or did you just end up there and then you just happen to be there for voiceover work and it just kind of worked out, or
Yeah, I'm from Los Angeles County. I'm from Lancaster, which is
okay.
like an hour north of LA. It's a suburb, at the very edge of the northern end of LA County. And now I'm still about an hour from LA, but I'm east of LA now, in Moreno Valley, Riverside, California area.
Cool. Okay. So I'm here with Garan Patrick, the audiobook narrator for my novel, Exactly How It's Supposed to Be. Garan, I wanted to ask you what attracted you to the idea of this project? Like when you see all those little Fiverr notes that come in, you kind of a little bit at the beginning of kind of getting going on this, or maybe in the middle of getting going as a voiceover person, and some dude reaches out with the crazy idea of a book about guys waiting for sex. What jumped out to you about this project, and why did you get excited about it?
Um, I think the number one thing that stood out to me about it and that drew me to it was the message. I'm 100% a believer in the message of the book. And I think it's pretty obvious what the message of the book is. And as someone with, Christian values, I'm just thrilled to be able to be a part of something that's pushing the right kind of agenda. And in a way, this book is kind of a ministry, and I get to be involved in doing a different kind of a ministry. I'm not preaching or teaching a class in church or something like that, but it is a ministry in the sense that it's teaching biblical values to young people, and trying to help them make good decisions that will glorify Christ. And I get to get paid for it, so it's a win-win. And then secondly, just more on the practical side, what drew me to it was like, oh, someone wants to trust me with their large book. It's like at the time, I hadn't had many, big jobs yet, and so it was cool to get that. And your book is actually, at the time, I had done some help, I think a couple self-help books and maybe one or two like autobiographical books, but I'd never done a novel before. So yours was the first novel that I've actually done.
Cool. Yeah. And I remember you saying, it's rare. Well, not rare. Maybe it's getting more and more common as you're into this more, but it seemed like it's rare that a lot of stuff that kind of aligns like that to your values and the things that you believe in comes across your inbox, or, it's work, but is it something that kind of, gets you excited? And maybe that's the good and the bad about voiceover work. It's like, there's good stuff and then there's other stuff. How have you, and maybe you have or haven't yet, but how do you like manage the conflict, or is there a conflict with the type of stuff people are asking you to do?
That's a great question. I mean, if I could just do, Christian content and just do Christian books and Christian YouTube videos and stuff like that, would be great, but you're not going to get much business. Let's just be honest. So you have to kind of decide, what are you willing to expand, to what limit are you willing to expand your boundaries for work? Because in my narrations and audiobooks, I'll say stuff that's on the script that I won't say in real life. And to be honest, the first time I ever cussed, the second time in my life I ever cussed was for audiobooks. So, and I say that not in a self-righteous way or anything like that, but that's just a personal decision I had made a long time ago. But I had to decide, what am I going to be willing to do? How am I going to balance this? This is what I do for work, and this is what I allow in my personal life. And I kind of came to an understanding that you have to. Well, I believe that you have to open yourself up, at least to some extent, to be able to kind of make it, to put food on the table, in this kind of an industry. But then at the same time, there are some projects I've turned down because they're a little bit, more too sensual or things like that. But I have, I do a couple channels for for rap music and stuff like that. And to be honest, I don't even listen to rap music, but they wanted a black voice actor, and I don't think there are many black voice actors, and they like my voice, and so I do it, and I say stuff on there that I wouldn't say in my personal life, but it's not too far on the raunchy side, and some of the things that have been put on my table that are, for me, too far, I've said no to, but those have only been a few.
Okay. And again, you talked about how you're a freelancer and how you work for yourself. So you have the free ability to turn stuff down. Like, you don't have to take every single job if it doesn't line up with
True.
what you want to do. So that's another great thing about being a freelancer.
True.
That's great. So here with Garan Patrick, we're talking about recording and production of the audiobook. Tell me a little bit about what's your process? Like, where do you go? Do you have a room now? You're not putting a sheet over your head anymore to do recordings. You've got maybe a little studio. And how does it all come together?
I we just moved into a new place a few months ago, and so when we moved in, it's a condo, it's a 2 bedroom condo, and I was trying to figure out I need a place where I can kind of build a makeshift, voiceover studio. And so I want the one of the best places to build a voiceover studio, unless you're actually like building like an actual studio in your home, which eventually I want to do. But I mean, unless you've got like just 10 grand laying around, it's you can't really do that. So you kind of make something that works while you're kind of building your career. So one of the best kind of places in a typical home would be like a walk-in closet. And so we didn't really have that. And so we had a spare bedroom.
Mhm.
But the bedroom, there wasn't any place in the bedroom to build it out. That wasn't right next to the window, and that window's it's there's an AC unit just outside the window, and it's really loud. And I tried it, and like, no, even with voice, I mean noise cancellation, it's just too loud. So I was like, man, where am I going to do this? So I decided on the bathroom, which isn't the best place for a voiceover booth because of I'm not a sound engineer, but I've heard that because of all the glass in a bathroom is just acoustically not the best. But I was like, this is the only option I have. So I because the bathroom has no windows in it, which is a big help. So I put so what I do is I have a PVC pipe booth with moving blankets, and then I also have a spare mattress that I put behind me. And due to the kind of mic that I have, there's different kinds of mics you can use for voiceover. But one of the best and my favorite is a shotgun mic, and that shotgun mic doesn't pick up too much sound from the side. It's most of the sound it picks up is straight directly where it's pointing to. So I have the mattress standing up behind me so that it absorbs a lot of the sound. And so that's kind of what I use. My process is I'll pull up the script on my laptop and just kind of go through it. And a lot of times I'm still getting better at this, but I'm still not very good. My record is 3.5 minutes of text without making a mistake. And I've never gone more than 3.5 minutes. So I'm constantly, every 30 seconds, I'm making a mistake, stumbling over something. And so what I do is whenever I make a mistake, I snap. And with that snap, when you're going back to edit the audio, you can see on the, I don't know what you call it, audio waves. You see, when you snap, there's that long vertical line. And so you
Okay.
know where you messed up and you just go and delete that part. So I'll
Okay.
mess up, I'll snap, and then I'll restart that sentence when I'm going back to doing the editing. And then for your book, you had me do like some bleeps for the cuss words, and so I just try to figure out how to do that, and I went and found like a sound effect, like a bleep sound effect, and so I made a new audio track and just kind of overlaid those where the those go where the cuss words are, and so it's two different tracks overlaid upon each other on top of each other. And so I have to go back and then when I make edits to the first audio, and then I have to I have to move the bleeps around to where it moves to. I know it's a little bit technical there, but that's kind of been my process for this book.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good because I remember sometimes when like the Leafs were like a little bit moved, and there were
Yeah, yeah.
a couple times where they were. So that kind of makes sense now as to why that was the way it was. Um, I am curious, like when you were doing the book, because you and I are remarkably similar. I mean, I'm not probably not as analytical as you, but we're remarkably similar because even when well, one of the for folks that don't know, one of the ways that we would do this is I would send Garan a script or the audiobook script, had some little notes in it from time to time. He would record it, send it back to me. I'd listen to it, make some highlights on some different things, and then maybe send him like a voice note if I was trying to get across an idea of how I wanted it to be read. And then he would record it again, and generally that would be it. Sometimes I would get a little nitpicky and take another round. But generally that was usually the process, and we kind of knocked it out. But even for me, like when there was something going on and it was around one of those cuss words, like I don't cuss. Like that's not something I do. So even like trying to like read it, the voiceover to you and send it, it's like, am I going to say this word? Am I not going to say this word? You know what I mean? Like, and
Yeah.
so for you having to do it, like, did you say the word and then bleep it? Did you just start like say the beginning of it and then just let the bleep kind of cover over it? I'm just curious because the book it has everything sort of dashed out in it. So when you see it, it's just the first letter and then dash.
Yeah.
Because even my wife was like, "You're not putting cuss words in here. I know you want to be authentic, but we're not putting cuss words in the book." But how did you handle those when you were reading them?
Yeah, I chose the latter of those two options. So since I was gonna bleep it out anyways, I was like, I don't have to say it. All I have to do is
Yeah,
just make that sound because I'm gonna block out the rest of the so as long as I have a little bit of that F sound or that sh sound,
yeah,
then I would just I knew it'd be fine. So I just said the first letter.
yeah. Good. Because I was wondering sometimes when I listened to it, I'm like, is he saying this? Because it sounds like he could be saying it, but he's just bleeping it
Yeah.
out. So,
Yeah. But
yeah.
on a lot of the other stuff I do, like YouTube videos, they don't give me the luxury of having it bleeped out. So
Bleep.
so I say it then, yeah. But it was so nice being able to not have to say the whole thing.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so we talked a little bit about like the process where I would send you stuff, and then you'd get the notes, and then you read it back. What was it? What was that process like? Like when you would read something and you probably send it over, and you're like, "This is it." This is it. And then this dude in Texas is like sending you back pages that are all like yellowed out and have all these highlights on them. And you're like, dude, come on, man. Like I thought this was perfect. Um, describe like that process working with me and all that fun stuff.
Yeah, I would say kind of what you just said. There were a couple times when I thought, man, I feel really confident about this chapter. I nailed that. And then it was like, oh no, there's 30 changes you need to make. And then there were times where I was like, that wasn't my strongest chapter, but we'll see what he says. And it's like, oh, it's just three little changes to make. And I'm like, oh, I guess you like that one. So there was that. And then so I just go back and redo those yellow parts that were highlighted. And sometimes it took a lot longer than I was expected, but like you said, we got it done.
We got it done. Yeah. And you were remarkably patient. And I know I'm the client. So, I work in advertising. I work for an advertising agency. I'm the guy who deals with the clients. And I know how clients can be.
Yeah.
Uh, so your patience with clients will serve you well, sir, and your voiceover journey. That you're very, very patient because they're just when you spend so much time, like I spent 4 years working on this and rewrote and
Yeah.
changed, blah, 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 blah. And there's certain parts where you just have it in your head, like this is probably how they're gonna read it. And what I realized kind of early on was one, don't get so nitpicky because the more nitpicky you get and the more little edits you do, and then you try and like stitch them in, like depending on when you're recording it, the voice tones don't like line up as nicely as if you were just kind of doing it throughout. So
Hmm.
it's so picky. And then as I was listening to other audiobooks while you were doing this, I was kind of like, man, he's as good as these people are. And my book is sounding as good as this. So don't be so picky about every little like thing because everybody's going to read the book differently. Nobody knows that like that's what's in your head. So it's really just a matter of this is somebody reading it. This is how they read it. That's the general point. Then let's go. So I started off a little bit more and then hopefully got a little bit better. And then at the end, I kind of got super picky. But Um,
I noticed that. I noticed that.
the reflections chapter was like that was like the dotting of the I. That one, I
That
definitely
was
had
the marathon at the end there. Yeah.
very specific things in that one that I was hoping for, but we got it. We got it done. Um, so let's talk about the story. You read all the whole thing, got invested in the characters. By the way, for somebody who is, kind of getting into this and whatnot, like you talked about your range is pretty cool. Like I had Garen doing, you know, ethnic voice, a little bit more proper, old ladies. He was doing little girls. He was doing, old guys. There was no shortage of different people in this book. There's a lot of people in this book. And he was doing all kind of, voices. And, I sent you a note when you were reading the voice of Safi, Glenn's sister, the little girl voice. And I was like, man, his little kid voice is pretty good for, 6'3" deep voice, dude. I was like, he did pretty good on that right off. So yeah, your range, that's another thing to merchandise when you're advertising yourself. Everything from little girl to grown man, who knows? Yeah, you got all that. But
Appreciate it.
talk about the story, like the story and the characters and um kind of what you were thinking as you were going. Did you read like the whole thing and then go back, or did you read it kind of as you were going to each chapter?
No, I just read it as I was going through each chapter. So when I was reading everything, everything was new to me.
Okay.
And so I thought about when I first started getting into audiobooks, I thought it'd probably be better to do just read the whole book first. But then I just realized like just be if there's a part where you kind of realize, oh, now that I have the whole picture, I should have read this paragraph differently. It'd still be more efficient to just go back and restart that paragraph than to read the whole book, especially because me, I'm a very, very slow reader. So,
Mhm.
and plus I'd forget everything by the time I went and started over anyways. Um, but no, I read it as I went along. And I've just, I've done some audiobooks where I've realized, man, this dude can't write. Um, and and this was not one of those. So
Yes.
I've realized from doing some audiobooks, there's a huge difference between stating facts and telling a story. And you are definitely a storyteller. And so it was fun to see what was going to happen each chapter and just kind of to see how things were written and all the imagery that was kind of interwoven into the story and just the way people reacted and the way they talked and just the little side stories here and there.
Yeah.
It's a very good, obviously it's a very good message, but just the storytelling in and of itself and the creativity there was very well done as well. So it was enjoyable for me to read it just from an entertainment standpoint while I was doing it for work.
Cool. Yeah. Well, thanks, because it's my first book. I've, worked in advertising for 20 plus years and then just was looking for a passion project and said, writing, my wife had written a book. And so I kind of turned to it and it was just like, just got excited, couldn't wait for the day to get over so I could write. And when I
Mm,
when I first got my first drafts done, it says to like let it sit for like 90 days and then come back to it. And so in that first 90 days when I let it sit, I read a book about writing books, about writing fiction. And it occurred to me I was doing the whole thing wrong. Like I was doing what you were talking about. I was telling, and it was big paragraphs of describing, but still like telling you versus treating your reader like they have a brain. So trying not to say things like they said angrily. You just write the dialogue in a way with an exclamation point and they're saying something I'm mad about, then you know they're angry, as opposed to always having to like tell people
Yeah.
that stuff. So that was basically I had to go and do the whole thing all over again and like redo it so that I wasn't doing some of the things that I think you maybe see in some of those other deals, and then it came out to be what it came out to be. But it was a process just to even write it and get it to where it would be entertaining. So what was like your biggest surprise, or well, I don't want to do spoilers, so we'll see if this makes it in the final video. But what was like your big thing that you were like, oh, whoa, what?
Yeah, there were a couple times where I was reading and then I was like, there was a sentence that came up and I couldn't even read the sentence. So I was like, he did what? And then so I had to restart that part and just kind of get back into narration mode for a second, because I was like so surprised and taken aback at the plot twist. There were a couple times, I won't say what happened, but there were a couple times um when involving Glenn and also involving Grayson, where I was like, oh snap, that just happened. So yeah, it was cool.
Yeah. Good. That's what I was kind of going for. I wanted it to be one of those things where it's like you don't really kind of see what's coming, and then it's like, oh wow, okay, that's not what I was expecting that character to do. But
Yeah,
go. So why do you think the story is important? Like, why do you think it's a good message?
I think it's a good message because it's, as much as it shouldn't be, it's radical, it's different, but it should be normal.
Right.
But it's completely abnormal. It's, I guess you can call it traditional if you want to use that term. But it's just, morally speaking and biblically speaking, it's just practical. It's it's a message um, that I full heartedly believe in, and that I think everyone should consider. And I like how you didn't just state, this is what you should do, this is how you should live. It was like, let me create a story that illustrates that point creatively, in a relevant way, so that I'm not just coming off as preachy or lectury. This is what you should do.
Right.
Let me give you a story that illustrates what you should do, and not only that, why you should do it,
Mhm.
and how it can be done.
Right. Right. Yeah. Basically, trying to create characters who made different choices. You can see people making different choices, the consequences of the choices, and then you make your own decision. The decision's always in our hands, but hopefully it's clear in this that some decisions are going to lead you in one direction and some decisions are going to lead you into a completely different direction. So where do you ultimately want to end up? Make sure you're making the right decisions.
Yeah.
So, um, what did you want to bring to like when every time you were kind of getting into a character or reading a character, what were you hoping to like bring to the different to the different characters? How'd you? I mean, there's three main guys, and then you kind of have Richard, who was there at the beginning, and then he kind of fell off, and well, there's another spoiler, but but how did you kind of decide? I mean, some of it was the description that I was giving you at the beginning, but how did you sort of create the characters in your voice?
um, like I said before, I was reading it as I went, and so I was kind of developing the characters as I went along, and you can kind of tell as you're reading. Grayson's just this overconfident, just high ego type of a guy, and so I just kind of gave him a deep masculine, like, you don't mess with me kind of a voice. And then Braylon and Glenn, there was so much dialogue between the two of them. I'll be honest, I didn't vary their voices too much,
Okay.
partly just to make my job easier so that I can just kind of use just a I didn't deviate too much from my regular narrating voice, so that as I was going through, as there were so much dialogue for the two of them, I didn't differentiate too much between the two of them. I made more of the characters that kind of stood out with their personality. I made them more distinctive, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah.
Such as Grayson, and I really enjoyed the moments where there was emotion, where something happened, and you can tell it's supposed to be a dramatic part of the book, especially when there was a lot of dialogue involved in
Mhm.
those scenes, if you can call them scenes. Um, and like I said, this was my first novel, and so it was kind of, in a way, it was an introduction to acting for me, because it's really acting without a camera.
It is.
And so I found myself enjoying those scenes, and I feel like I might have done maybe the best during those scenes as well. So I enjoyed that.
There's a couple, and I'd have to go back and remember, but there's a couple times where like we're supposed to get choked up, and and either I don't know if you got it on the first one or on a revision, but some of those were like, man, like I'm feeling it, like you're the choke up that you had, like you could feel it in the character. Like I was like, ooh. I remember
Awesome.
either hearing it one time or either the revision, like I was saying, and I was like, ooh, like I was like, oh, and then I just keep shaking my head because sometimes, like, I want to go back and like fix their decisions, but the book is the book, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Book is the book. So, what is the one thing that you would tell people who have yet to connect with this story? What would you tell them um, about it and why they should connect?
I would say to at least consider it, at least give it a shot. And if nothing else, you get to hear an amazing voice. So no, just kidding. But I would say that even if you're reading you know the message behind the book and you disagree with the message, I would say just read it for the purpose of enjoying the entertainment of a creatively written novel. And then you'll even if you know the message, you'll see the message presented in a different way than maybe you've heard it before. And at the end, if you disagree with the message and you don't want to apply that or whatever, then that's fine. But at least you gave it a shot. But I would say just be open to at least hearing the story, because even if you take the message away, it's a good book.
Cool. Thanks. Appreciate that. So for people that are watching this and they're hearing your voice and they're like, dude, that dude does have a great voice. I need to connect with him. Um, where and how do they connect with you?
Yeah, I'm on Fiverr and on Upwork. I don't know. I know it's hard to search for individual people on Fiverr. But on Fiverr, I'm Garan P, Garan, and then P. I think it's underscore P. But really, I would encourage you to connect with me through my email. Garan Garan dot Patrick at gmail.com
Awesome.
is my email. So Garan.Patrick at gmail.
Awesome. 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 And then I think you talked about this, but like as far as future voiceover work, like where do you want to go? Like where do you see yourself with all of this? Are you going to be one of those movie trailer dudes and that we're hearing, or
Yeah, that's a great question. So right now I currently do just whatever anyone throws my way. I'm open and available for basically any medium of voiceover work. Obviously audiobooks, and within that category you've got self-help and novels, fiction, nonfiction, autobiography. I'm open for all of it, and I've experienced with all of it as well. And I've done corporate narrations for like corporate videos. I've done ads and maybe a couple like not big name but some commercials. a lot of YouTube video narrations, things like that. And then I've done a little bit of character acting. I'm working on a video game right now. I've done just like the voicing for some of the characters in like the first 4 missions of a video game that's in the process of being made right now. So end game, my goal is to be doing commercials, a lot of commercials, hopefully getting some big name commercials, and character acting. Those are the two mediums that I'd like to be doing later on, whether video games or um, uh, you know, some kind of animated films or whatever. It'd be a dream, an absolute dream to, voice a character for a Pixar film or DreamWorks or something like that. That's like top level. That's my dream right there. So hopefully one day we'll get there. But
Yeah.
that's what I'd love to do. Movie trailers, I'd love to do those as well. Those would be fun. I've been imitating the movie trailer voice for years, so that's always fun. Yeah, definitely. Anything in that realm, I'd love to do.
So thank you, Garan. I appreciate your time reading the book. Glad you enjoyed it. Your voice is fire. The book came
Appreciate
out
that.
great. And looking forward to the time when when you're doing your Pixar and you're doing all your stuff, and I can be like, he was my audiobook guy before he was doing all that stuff. So hopefully you'll be available to do subsequent books, because I got more ideas in
Nice.
mind. So thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you for having me.